Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another broadcast of The Weekly with me, Neff. Please subscribe to the channel and share this video with a couple of friends and colleagues. We are trying to reach 1,000 subscriptions, and every subscription helps us out with that goal. I have a question, everybody out there. Who wants to win the game this summer? Does DC Studios want to win the game with James Gunn as the new head of creativity basically over there? He's an executive at this point, but he's operating as a writer and a director at the same time with Superman. And then you have Marvel Studios with the Fantastic Four. Now, the Fantastic Four got a little help with Thunderbolts leading the way there. And then they have some excitement on the back end with Doomsday. Everybody wants to know how the centerpiece is going to work with the trifecta of films being laid out by Marvel Studios. So let's look at a couple things. We're really going to be focusing on the marketing. We're going to talk about the trailers for these films. We're going to talk about the budget for these films, and we're going to look at the planning behind what they have coming on the back end of these films, and then we'll just kind of test the excitement level. I want people to chime in down in the comments after they watch this video and let me know what they think about it, but let's break things down. Let's start with DC. So, as you guys know, James Gunn has taken over DC for Warner Brothers, right? He is the creative head there. He's really on the creative side of things. Saffron is on the business end of things, and so we have Superman releasing on July 11th, 2025. This is going to be after the release of Jurassic World Rebirth, and I'm going to have a comparison video between those two later on in the future as well. But 2 weeks before Fantastic Four, which comes out on the 25th of July. As we know right now, it has been reported that the budget for Superman is $350 million. This is the raw cost of the film. We've got this information from tax filings, and there could be a bunch of tax incentives bringing down the cost of the film on the back end, but that's what we have right now. So we have a film that cost about $350 million to make. Obviously, it's going to be the biggest release of DC Studios lineup this year. You do have Peacemaker 2, which is going to be releasing in August, and there could be some connections there as well, but we will just have to see. So we have a budget there of $350 million. Now, let's look at the presumed Fantastic Four budget. That budget is about $200 million to $250 million. We're going to go with the latter and say $250 million. Now, why is that? We do know that they did have some reshoots just a couple weeks ago. And initially, I would have thought, just from the presentation of what we've seen from the film, that this film was going to cost about $200 million to $220 million. But I'm sure with the reshoots, and if they're manipulating the end of the film, any little thing, that's adding cost, obviously VFX as well. I do think this film is going to be very VFX heavy, so I think that's worthy of the bump up to about $250 million, and I think that's going to be the top of the top for the budget of the film. Now, let's talk about the marketing aspect of the film. So, cool enough, while Superman has been getting a lot more marketing push, in my opinion, just with content that has come out, they do have 2 trailers each. So you have the teaser trailers for Fantastic Four and Superman, right? And then you have the official trailers for Fantastic Four and Superman. So we'll go 2 for 2 there. Currently, Superman has the lead with 79 million views cumulative. So these are both the trailers that have been released. Obviously, the Superman trailer just released, the second trailer that was, so the official trailer just released. So it's still tallying up views. But as I saw it from last night, the stat was 79 million views. Fantastic Four has 49 combined million views. And so Fantastic Four is trailing behind significantly by 30 million views. That Fantastic Four trailer also dropped a couple weeks before we got this Superman trailer. So they've had some more time to garner up some attention. Unfortunately, it's been a lot more negative attention on Fantastic Four, in my opinion, but it would seem that the attention is a lot louder with Superman. I haven't heard too much negative, to be quite honest, about Superman, other than, you know, test screenings not going so well. Not so much about reshoots. I don't know if they've done a lot of reshoots on Superman, but most of the hoopla was about the test screenings not doing well internally. That could have been fabricated. And then, you know, some people don't care for the direction that this film is going in. But on the other end, I've heard a lot of positive things about Superman as well. So I've heard that they do like the direction. I've heard that the trailer was great. I heard the trailer was actually phenomenal from a colleague of mine. So the reaction to Superman has been pretty much mixed, but I'd say mostly positive, where Fantastic Four, I'd say the same thing. Mostly positive. People are hoping hopeful for it, but there have been some things that have kind of plagued the film before its release. Okay, so you do have the fact that there's going to be some controversy with some of the characters in the group. Of course, The Thing, there seems to be some rumors about his character, Vanessa Kirby's role in this film. Pedro Pascal has been saying some things outside of the film itself. So all of these rumors and or events that have been taking place in between the release of this film could have an effect on the film. But I do think overall Fantastic Four is going to do well, especially if they clean up the end, as they say they're working on right now. Fantastic Four is a film that I'm excited for, to be quite honest. I'm pretty open-minded about it. I'll be watching the film on opening weekend, and more than likely, I'll be watching Superman on opening weekend as well. But yeah, just covering the views and amount of attention for both films, I would say Superman definitely has the edge, and I think people are anticipating them both about the same, but I think expectations on Superman are a lot higher, which leads into the weight of the performance of these films for both studios. I've referenced multiple times talking on the Weekly and the Popcorn Square podcast that, in my opinion, as it stands, both these films hold the same amount of weight for both studios presenting these projects, because it really is a hard reboot, you could say. Obviously, Zack Snyder's DC is finished, and now you have James Gunn's DC stepping in to take over for that. And then with Marvel, you're really leading into a whole new slew of characters, some familiar faces, but overall a new era of what Marvel is going to be bringing in these next phases. Obviously, you have the X-Men reboot that's going to be shooting in October. We confirmed that, a lot of news on that. We have Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. You're going to be implementing a lot of new characters with that. You're going to have the mix of the Avengers and the X-Men there, right? Also, you had the Thunderbolts, aka the new Avengers now. So like I said, familiar faces that you've seen, but the marketing around them is different now. With Superman, you're launching a whole new universe at this point, a new DC universe. And so James Gunn has the task of doing that, and this being the first film to cater to his vision, which is extremely important because it's going to set the tone for everybody. And to be quite honest, at the end of the day, both these films do have to perform well, I think, from a box office standpoint and from a reception standpoint, and maybe more from a reception standpoint, because really the reception is the data that you could use to project what you could possibly do in the future, project-wise and box office-wise when it comes to returns. It really lets you know what is viable and what's not viable. If Superman doesn't work, you could say this DC Studios thing is going to be blown up once again, and James Gunn is going to be on the clock. You cannot have a film that costs $300 million not making money and getting mixed reviews. You don't want that. It needs to be a decent outing at the box office, and overall it needs to be looked at as a decent film. Doesn't need to be the best film of all time, but definitely needs to be a solid, I'd say 7.5, 8. I think that would be all right for them just on the face of it. Also, for Fantastic Four, same thing. If Fantastic Four does not work, Doomsday is not going to work. Marvel has done a good job of damage control and or keeping any issues that they're having in-house. But obviously, we've talked about this on the Weekly. They're not working with a fully realized script on a film with over 30 characters in it. This just sounds like a convoluted mess at this point in time. If there's not a way to actually balance all these characters, like I said, while introducing new characters, mixing in familiar faces, and then the centerpiece, Robert Downey Jr., he's going to be the anchor of the film, having Robert Downey Jr. now as Dr. Doom, which has to be believable for the audience, right? They're so connected with him being Iron Man. It's definitely going to be a psychological thing there. And I think most people in the audience, they will accept him as Dr. Doom, but I think it's going to be hard for them to separate the two characters in a sense. And it's really all on Robert Downey Jr. to be able to portray Dr. Doom the right way. Don't expect him to have his mask on too much, ladies and gentlemen. They didn't hire him on to have his mask on the whole time. And we all know that is a signature of Victor Von Doom. And so it's probably going to be something we see a little bit of, but not the full capacity of it, because obviously, like we said, they're not paying him $50 million a film to keep a mask on the whole time, even though the mask is intricate. But with all that being said, when it comes to Avengers Doomsday, obviously we are about a year out from the release of that film. It's going to be releasing on, I believe, May 6th, 2026. So definitely going to be one of the bigger summer hits, especially for Marvel. I think they're going to market it kind of like how they did Deadpool and Wolverine, to be quite honest. That film really does lead into everything else after that. But more importantly, Fantastic Four, the first steps, it's not only figurative, it is literal. It does have to be the first steps to Avengers Doomsday. They got some help with Thunderbolts. For the most part, people do like Thunderbolts. Don't know if the film is going to perform like Marvel wants, but I think it's really just marketing to go into Fantastic Four and then take Fantastic Four into Avengers Doomsday. And I think if a Doomsday film does come out good, which I want it to, I think that film could make $1 billion, but we will just have to see, and a lot of it does depend on Fantastic Four. Are people going to buy into the new Marvel setup? Same thing goes for Superman. Are people going to buy into what James Gunn is throwing out there? There's a lot that they need to work on. Obviously, we have some stuff going on with the Batman. We have now supposedly just gotten news that Matt Reeves is going to be turning in his script, his first draft of his script, sometime this upcoming week. So we're going to see if that actually comes to fruition. Hopefully Matt Reeves stays on. That's what we want. We want continuity. Obviously, the Batman made about $800 million when it released a few years ago. It's been some things going on in between, which is why the production has been pushed back. I know Robert Pattinson wants to continue what they had there, Matt Reeves. I think we do get the second film. Do I know who's going to be involved in this film in totality? Not yet. We're waiting for that information. Are we going to get the trilogy that we were told we were going to get from Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson? I don't know at this point, but we do have our fingers crossed, and we're going to be looking at that information closely as we keep getting updates on what's going on behind the scenes in Elseworld. I think it'd be a huge mistake for Warner Brothers to cancel that project because it's one of the more popular projects that DC has put out recently, and in this juncture of time, I don't think DC nor Marvel has the opportunity to be just getting rid of successful IPs at this point. So we're going to see where the news takes us there. And so we covered basically rumors for these films, expectations for these films. Now let's cover some excitement and also hype for these films. This is where I want everybody to chime in down in the comments as much as possible. And please share this video with a couple of friends out there as well. Let them know, what do you guys think about the dichotomy between these two studios and these two films and the pressure that both these films hold and have to actually navigate with up until the release of the films? All right, so excitement, not just for these films, okay? What do you think about the series of films that are going to be coming after? And what do you think about the universe that could potentially be being built? Are you more excited for the Superman universe with DC Studios and James Gunn? Or are you more excited for Marvel and Fantastic Four and the new phase that we're going to be getting with Marvel, where we have Avengers Doomsday, Secret Wars, Spider-Man 4, okay? We have another Thor, apparently Thor 5. You have the X-Men reboot, aka the potential mutant saga. And then you have maybe the Deadpool and X-Men crossover film that's being worked on as well. I want to know what you guys think about that. That's kind of like a open-ended question for you guys to chime in with. At this point in time, for me, the excitement lies with both evenly. Like I said, in my opinion, these films have the same amount of pressure on them and the same amount of expectations. In a sense, Superman is obviously more popular than any character you could argue other than Spider-Man when it comes to Marvel. And in the beginning, I wasn't even so hot on this Superman film or James Gunn. Kind of built up over time. My Fantastic Four excitement was interesting as well because I've never really been into the Fantastic Four films. Obviously, I remember when that first batch of films came out, the first one was looked at as decent. The second one kind of fell off, and then they had that reboot there. That didn't do well at all. But now we have another reboot of Fantastic Four. So Fantastic Four is an interesting case when it comes to Marvel. You could argue that it's pre-MCU events, right? So they could be doing some of that too with some timeline stuff there. Everything's a multiverse now, correct? But Fantastic Four is a film that's had multiple reboots and has seemed to not be able to work. So that's why, I think for Marvel, this is going to be a task in itself. If you can actually make a Marvel film that is, surrounding the Fantastic Four group that people actually like, maybe even be acclaimed, then I think they have accomplished something with that in themselves. But that task is going to be a tough task. Superman, obviously an iconic character, a lot of pressure on James Gunn. There's a lot of people that did like the Snyderverse, right? So you do have a split fan base there. I think as far as the polarizing element goes, Superman is definitely going to be a more polarizing film, and I'd say a more emotional film overall. But that's no slight to Fantastic Four. I just think the Fantastic Four film is going to be more Marvel, and Superman's going to be more DC. Not going to be as dark as what we had before, but definitely going to be more emotional. And I think David Corenswet, I think he has the chance to be arguably the best Superman we've seen on screen, just from an acting standpoint. But he's only working with the script he has been presented, so we'll have to see what the performance is on that. And I want to know what everybody thinks about the implementation of crypto. A lot of crypto, as I've said before in the weekly, probably the best marketing tool that DC Studios could have used, putting in the dog. That's how you get the family involved with the film. I want to see crypto in the film, but I don't want to see him that much. That's just how I feel about it. I don't know how everybody else thinks about that. But one more thing that I wanted to tap into as far as the Fantastic Four is concerned, I'm very excited to see Galactus's presentation. It looks like we're actually getting a real lore-accurate version of Galactus in this film, so I'm excited for that. And I want to see Shala Ball, Silver Surfer. I know a lot of people are killing them for that. They don't want the female Silver Surfer. Julia Gardner's playing her, by the way. They don't want that at all. They're not happy about it, but like I said, open-minded about it. I want to see if they can actually do it. Last time they did the Silver Surfer, they messed that up royally, and Silver Surfer is one of the cooler characters in Marvel just based off aesthetic. But we've covered a lot, ladies and gents. This is the battle of the summer between comic book movies and characters, DC Studios versus Marvel. We talked about anticipation. We talked about excitement. We talked a little bit about rumors. We talked about budget. We talked about the marketing and the trailers, and we talked about the future of both of these studios when it comes to these series and what they got going on in the world of the MCU and the new, I guess you want to call it DCEU, DCU, whatever you want to call it. It changes all the time. But I want to know, everybody, what do you think about this conversation that we have had? I thought it was a solid, entertaining conversation, very educational. There's some things in here that a lot of people might not know on the surface, but I hope I was able to clear some of that up for you, ladies and gents. If I did miss something, let me know down in the comments as well. But yes, I definitely want to hear everybody's thoughts on what they think about these two films. Like I said, in the future, I'll be doing Superman versus Jurassic World Rebirth, only because those ones are close in proximity as far as the July releases. Fantastic Four kind of has the luxury of being out on an island for about 2 weeks in between on the front and back end. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what film actually takes the cake in the month of July. Ladies and gents, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, ring the bell for notifications, share this video with a couple of friends and colleagues. Like I said, I want to hear what they think about this discussion. I think it's a great discussion that everybody should look into. Please comment down below and be safe. It's Neff signing off.